Water is an issue that grows daily throughout the state of Texas. As our population grows, there is more and more need for every gallon of water to be used wisely. Capturing rainfall is one way to reduce runoff and have a stored supply of high-quality water for the landscape. The purpose of this presentation is to look at the ways to passively capture rainfall through rain gardens, bog gardens, and various other forms of landscaping that will slow down runoff and promote infiltration of rainwater into the soil. We'll also look at a system that will store and distribute the rainwater through the use of roofs, gutters, and downspouts. At the end of the presentation, we'll cover the uses for rainwater and the resources available for further information. As we look at capturing rainfall, the first point to understand is that all rainfall is valuable, and managing this natural resource is the first key to good stewardship. Rainfall that's captured on land allows aquifers to recharge. It's filtered by vegetation, and the rainwater runoff moves much more slowly, decreasing the amount of sediment carried away through erosion. Most rivers and lakes are flooded by runoff from impervious streets, parking lots, roads, and buildings. This water carries with it pollutants from lawns, parking lots, and streets, as well as topsoil and nutrients located close to the soil surface. Rapid runoff from urban and rural areas is impacting rivers. This promotes stream bank erosion and transportation of pollutants. Capturing rainwater and putting it directly into the ground reduces the potential for contaminant transport and will limit flooding due to rapid runoff from impervious or poorly managed surfaces. On the opposite extreme, drought is a common part of the Texas environment. During extended periods of drought, water restrictions and failing water supplies greatly impact our state. Capturing rainfall when it comes and saving it for those dry periods reduces the impact on other water supplies and allows us to water plants even during restricted periods. One of the most frequently overlooked reasons to capture rainwater for landscape use is the extent to which rainwater surpasses municipal or private supplies in quality. Landscapes and vegetable gardens grow and flourish when higher quality water is used. Landscapes are important economically and aesthetically. Americans spent $50.9 billion on landscapes in 1999, and that amount continues to grow because a well-designed and maintained landscape adds 5 to 20% to the value of a home. Landscape improvement has a recovery value of 100 to 200%, while a kitchen has a 75 to 120% recovery value. One way to capture rainfall is called passive collection. The idea of passive collection is to reduce runoff and put more water into the ground so it can be used by plants and facilitate aquifer recharge. The landscape is designed to retain water, promoting infiltration, directing it to plantings to promote growth, and to filter the excess water as it leaves the yard. Designing landscape plantings on a contour and planting in drifts allows for better and easier distribution of captured water. Rain gardens are constructed by simply developing a flat area with a raised landscape berm to hold back water so it can spread out uniformly and infiltrate the soil. It is not a wetland, bog, or pond. Standing water should move into the soil within 24 to 36 hours to prevent plants from drowning or mosquitoes from breeding. This can be part of an overall landscape design and is a way to improve water infiltration and reduce stormwater runoff. The garden could also be equipped with a drip irrigation system attached to another water source to assist plants during dry times. These pictures show water spreading out after initial construction and plants functioning to assist water movement into the soil while adding landscape interest. Bog gardens are landscaped areas that can be saturated with water but have no standing water. They can be lined ponds 2 feet deep, first filled with 4 to 6 inches of gravel, and then soil or compost added to a level equal to the soil surface. Bog plants are then planted with their roots in the saturated zone, while still enjoying the sunlight on the surface. Rainwater from a downspout would pass through the bog garden, and then the overflow would run into the landscape or a rain garden once saturated. This will also reduce stormwater runoff while adding uniqueness and value to the landscape. No matter how good the landscape design or plant selection, knowing how much and when to water is essential to good plant performance and wise use of water resources. The other way to capture water is called a complex system, which includes a roof or catchment of some kind, a gutter, downspouts, storage, and a delivery method to fulfill its design purpose of irrigation, water features such as ponds, fountains, and streams, wildlife, and/or pets. Because of our state's rapidly growing population, the desire to build houses in remote locations has increased, thereby increasing the demand for water. This situation has forced people to look for alternative sources of high-quality water, which has also created a growing interest in collecting rainwater. The average annual rainfall in Texas ranges from around 9 inches in El Paso to around 52 inches in the Sabine Pass along the Gulf Coast. This means that the amount of rainfall that can be captured is greater in the eastern part of Texas than in the western part. Because of this, the landscape must be designed to capture and store a reasonable amount of water. For example, to capture the same amount of water in El Paso as in the Sabine Pass, a roof in El Paso must be 6 times as large, and a much larger storage container must be used to counteract the long dry periods in West Texas. Capturing rainwater can be in something as small and simple as this rain barrel. Larger systems can be constructed to have a much larger water supply, available for a number of uses including drip irrigation in a rain garden, bog garden, or other landscape feature. It can also be used for watering birds, wildlife, pets, or in a water feature. This collection system at the Montgomery County Texas AgriLife Extension Office in Conroe, Texas, is placed in a less noticeable location and covered with wooden pickets to improve its appearance. Collection tanks can also be hidden inside a shop or other buildings, as is the case here where they're inside a greenhouse. The heat from the tanks also helps reduce the winter heating bills for the greenhouse. The key to determining how much water you can collect is based on 0.6 gallons of water per square foot of catchment area. The footprint of the roof or area of the roof outline, not the actual square feet of surface area. The pitch or slope of the roof or catchment area does not affect the amount of rainfall that you can catch. For example, when a 2,000 square foot building receives 1 inch of rain, it can potentially capture 1,200 gallons of water. Although the roof can be of any size, shape, and material, the slicker the surface of the roof, the less dust, debris, and foreign material that will stick to the roof and wash into the catchment container. That being said, for non-potable water use, any roofing material will do the job. Composition shingles, wood shingles, tile, metal, or similar materials. Leaves and other contaminants can quickly fill gutters and storage containers if they're not screened. Gutter screens, leaf baskets, and a first flush diverter can be added to prevent these contaminants from entering the system. A filter basket can be made by inserting a 1-gallon plant container that has a screen glued in the bottom inside a 6-inch hole drilled in the top of the rain barrel. Water from the downspout is diverted through this container and screen, thereby removing leaves and other foreign objects from the water. The overflow should be below the bottom of the plant container top to prevent mosquitoes from breeding and to protect water quality. Larger filter baskets can be built or purchased to match the hole inside the storage tank. The goal is to keep larger debris as well as mosquitoes out of the storage container. A first flush diverter will allow dust and contaminants to be washed off the roof, not allowing them to enter the storage tank. For outside use, the diversion of water is not as important as screening the water to keep larger particles out. The first flush diverter pictured will have water first fill up the white pipe that's vertical, and once filled, the water will run into the storage container. The standing pipe has a plug on the bottom that may be left loose, so the pipe will drain on its own between rains to prevent maintenance after each rainfall. There are many commercial first flush diverters available. This decision about which one to use is up to the individual and specific needs. Individuals must realize that early morning dews will be diverted in a first flush system as described earlier. In any situation, an inline filter should be added as water is taken out of the storage container to prevent clogs in the distribution system. There are systems where water coming off the roof and running into the storage container through PVC pipes have water remaining in the pipes between rains or drain dry. The difference in a wet line and dry line is that with the dry line, all the water will drain from the roof, gutter, and downspout into the storage tank. The wet line allows water to drain into the downspout, across the yard, and up into the storage tank in another location. As long as there is a sufficient height difference between the bottom of the gutters and the entry point into the storage tank, water will travel and rise into the tank with gravity pressure from the weight of the water. This will allow you to hide the storage tank or place it inside or behind a storage shed. However, water will remain in the pipes and may cause problems in the winter due to freezing. The cost of a cistern depends on the type of material used and size of the tank. As a rule of thumb, the larger the tank, the lower the cost per stored gallon of water. Polyethylene has traditionally been the lowest cost approach when looking at 5,000 gallons of water or less. They can be painted to alter their original color. One point to remember is that if sunlight can get inside the tank, algae will grow. If it does not, algae will not grow. White, yellow, or other translucent tank colors will allow enough light for algae growth. These containers can be primed with a latex paint and then painted to a chosen color. Painting will also reduce the temperature of the water inside the tank. Storage tanks are also available in concrete, fiberglass, galvanized steel, rock, or wood. Most rain barrels are polyethylene, while the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center's storage tank is in traditional hill country stone. Cisterns come in a variety of sizes, shapes, and combinations of materials. Poly tanks can be covered with wood slats to be more aesthetically appealing. Collection tanks are also coming in new colors and designs to reduce their sometimes invasive appearance. Rain barrels can be individually installed or connected together at the bottom and top to link multiple barrels together. This large pot holds over 500 gallons of water and can be a center of attraction as well as functional. Specifically designed collection tanks can be buried to hide them. However, they'll have to be anchored down with an overflow and pump to access the water. Larger storage chambers can be installed under a landscape or parking lot to allow for larger volumes of water to be stored, thereby greatly reducing runoff from the site. Once water is captured, there are several ways to measure the amount collected. A clear plastic tube attached to the outside and running up the side of the tank will indicate water level. Water will rise in the tube to the same level as inside the container. There are also a number of manufactured water level gauges. Clear sight gauges should be drained after each use to prevent algae growth. Once water is captured in a storage tank, it has to be available for use. Rain barrels can have a faucet attached near the bottom for easy access to the water. Larger containers should also have an opening near the bottom. A cutoff valve is the first thing to be added. Then faucets or other connections can be added for desired use. The location of a cutoff valve preceding any other component allows you to work on any part of the distribution system without having to drain the storage container. Rainwater is not potable and is unsafe to drink in its collected form. Precautions should be taken to inform people of this by posting signs or labels next to the spout and/or faucet and along the water lines. Once tanks are full, there needs to be an overflow to allow water to escape rather than backing up into the gutters. The overflow needs to be the same size as the tank inlet. These can be screened or capped to prevent mosquitoes and other critters from entering the tank. The weight of water in the storage container is approximately 8 pounds per gallon. The rhyme, "a pint a pound the world round," is a good way to remember the weight of water. That weight will produce just under a half pound of pressure for each foot of water in the container. Although drip irrigation emitters will function with just 1 pound of pressure, there's not enough pressure for it to function accurately or to run a sprinkler system. For that, a pump is needed. Water can be pumped from the storage tank just as if it were a shallow well. The use of an on-demand pump or traditional pump with pressure tanks can be used. Components may include the pump, check valve, pressure switch, piping, and a form of electric or solar power to run the pump. The employment of a plumber or electrician may be needed to hook it all up. Rainwater can be applied to the landscape or used just as you would water from other sources, except that it is non-potable. It can be applied by drip irrigation, provide water for water features or gardens, supply water for pets, in bird baths and for wildlife, or connected to a pump and used with a drip or sprinkler system. Water is an issue growing daily in Texas. As our population grows, there's more and more need for every gallon of water to be used wisely. Capturing rainfall is one way to reduce runoff and have a stored supply of high-quality water for the landscape.